right. I am not hearing any more beeps of people entering the call, so I'm assuming we're all here. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience and perseverance. So we'll go ahead and start. Carolyn, I don't know if you want to start us off as usual or if I should just jump right in. You can unmute yourself, I think, Carolyn. You should be able to. Okay, I can start. Okay. I'll just remind everyone of just the deep gratitude to Sangha Live, and they're putting a lot of work and effort into making these calls possible, and we'll let you know how you can offer donations for this time. Usually there's a button underneath the video, but maybe Carolyn can put in the link for those of you who are able to do that as a way to support the many costs that go into making a Sangha Live possible. And so the flow of today will be slightly different. We have about 40 minutes now, but we'll start with a short teaching, and then we'll do a bit shorter meditation than usual because we've lost some time. And then we'll have some time for questions. And I saw some beautiful questions on the other platform. We'll see if you can put those in the chat again for me. I'd be happy to answer some of them that came from you yesterday and any ones that come up from today. So today we're going to look at impermanence and the practice of the 5 remembrances. So this is a very appropriate occasion to be looking at impermanence on a day when our technical platform that we usually don't have issues with has had some issues. So this is one of the key, and yes, I'm recording, so we'll have this as a recording too. So impermanence is a key teaching in the teachings of the Buddha. It's what's called one of the 3 marks of existence. It's one of the 3 things that just determines everything and conditions everything. Impermanence is one. Unsatisfactoriness is another, and not self is another. And in some traditions, it's not unsatisfactoriness, but it's nirvana, which is sort of the other side of the coin of unsatisfactoriness. But today we're going to look at impermanence, and you know, this is something that we can observe in our daily lives. Our whole lives are a process of transition. Even in times that are stable externally, maybe we spend a few years in the same dwelling or in the same relationship or same job or same place of study. Even when things outside are quite steady, inside there's a lot that's changing constantly, just from one breath to the other, from throughout the day, from in one tiny nanosecond, cells are being born in our body, cells are dying. I learned that about 100 million new red blood cells are being formed in our bodies every minute. So there's a huge amount of change. And then just if you go out into the bigger picture, our planet that we don't seem to experience as spinning on its own axis or moving throughout the solar system is moving at a speed of something like 60,000 miles per hour. So we're changing position very quickly all the time as a whole planet. So impermanence influences everything, and recognizing how it constantly operates in our lives in small ways helps us to be more receptive and accepting of how it operates in larger ways, in times of bigger upheaval and turmoil, like times of loss, changes in our relationships, work, living environment, or health. And what's important about the practice we're going to do today and just reflecting on impermanence is that we have a tendency to get lulled into believing that what is now will always be here. And this is the central cause of our suffering, that we want that which has the nature to change to stay the same. Especially for those of us who live in Western cultures that are obsessed with youth and that avoid or try to hide the reality of death from us. This really human tendency to not look at impermanence is even more underscored. But when we face the truth of impermanence, it actually frees us up to live our lives more deeply and to transform our deepest fears. So the more we can bring it up into our conscious awareness from where it's sleeping underneath the surface and make a point to look at it clearly, the less we'll be controlled by the subtle unconscious fear of change that's always operating. It's just under the radar of awareness. So it's important to consciously look at this subconscious fear that most people have, and it's kind of this background fear. We don't want things to change. We don't want to lose the things we have. We don't want to get, bad things that we don't have right now. All those things are kind of a low level, low grade difficulty, a kind of a drain on us. And when we bring it into conscious awareness, we have the opportunity to not be in its grips and not be drained by it in that way, but to really look at it and understand it, kind of confront it in a way. So impermanence is not an idea, it's really an insight. That's when it can really be transformative for us and remove fear. So the insight is enormously empowering because we're opening to the truth of how life is. We're not remaining confused by our delusions and how we want it to be. So we can observe it in the constant changing, of our breath, as I mentioned. No one breath is the same as the previous breath, right? It's something we just take for granted and we don't even notice most of the time, but each single breath is unique and has never come before, will never come again. So the Buddha offered a meditation on impermanence called the 5 Remembrances that helps us to get out of this dream that things will stay the same as we wish them to. And the Buddha invited us to remember these 5 things every day. That's why they're called the 5 Remembrances. So the first thing to remember is that we are of the nature to grow old, that we can't escape that. The second remembrance is that we are of the nature to have ill health. The third is that we are of the nature to die. The fourth is that our loved ones are of the nature to change and we can't avoid being separated from them. And lastly, that our actions are our only true possessions, that we don't get to take anything else with us when we pass away, just the consequences of our actions. And so in this meditation, we consciously bring up things that we usually don't want to see, that, for some folks, it's quite depressing to contemplate these things, or quite, um, you know, brings up fear, or brings up frustration or anger, sadness. So we don't usually want to look at the fact that we and those we love will one day pass away. But Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher Thai, says contemplating impermanence in this way is not intended to make us feel depressed or anxious, but to actually help us feel more alive and in touch with life, to appreciate its preciousness even more. I have a dear friend, Larry Ward, a Dharma teacher also, who practices these. As soon as he wakes up, he takes some deep breaths, and then he just reminds himself, this is the nature of my life. And he resources himself by calling someone he loves to mind, but that's his way of starting the day. I remember I once offered these 5 remembrances in a meditation to teenagers on a teen retreat. And I was, it was a wonderful experience to hear their reflection after, that they said, this was painful to reflect on these things, but also really good. They said it was refreshing, and it opened them up so that they could live deeply and really treasure their relationships. So when we meditate on the 5 remembrances, we're also preparing ourselves so that we will know one day how to die well. Mindfulness practice is also a preparation for one of the biggest transitions and challenges we will each face, which is our own death. So meditating on these 5 remembrances can help us to be ready to support and accompany others when they pass away. The more we bring up and get used to entertaining this, these facts of our life, the more ease we have when death, illness, old age happens to us or to those we love. And this is a very precious gift to be able to help someone, to accompany them when they're going through whatever one of these losses, one of these, manifestations of impermanence. Because when we accompany them mindfully, we can give them some measure of non-fear, whether it's in the face of an illness or, old age or death or losing those that they love. So let's begin the practice. And, this is really about facing the truth of our lives. And so if you notice discomfort or fear arising as you do the meditation, pause to be with and care for the difficult emotions with compassion, with kindness. You don't have to continue if you don't want. You can just be there for yourself, connect with your breath. So you can just take time to be with whatever needs your attention as we go through the practice. So I invite you to find a comfortable position and just check in as you're sitting here. Is there any adjustment you want to make to bring more comfort, more ease to your posture? And just settling into a position that's supportive, that's comfortable. Feeling your breath. Feeling your body. And letting yourself begin to open and settle as you drop into this moment. Releasing tension, releasing expectations of how things should go. Letting go of any thoughts or plans or projections that are not about what's here and now. Taking deep breaths, if that helps, just a few times. Deep inhale, long exhale. Sometimes it can help to make a little sigh or a big sigh as you exhale. So feel free to make noise if that feels good. Really letting your body land and release onto the earth. This body that is constantly changing. Even from one second to the next, it's not the same. Just feeling into that constant impermanence in your body. From one breath to the next, it's already quite different. And all of life around us is the same. From one moment to the next, to the next. Nothing is staying the same. Now we open ourselves to the first of the 5 remembrances. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. If you like, you can bring in your breath to help you practice with the key words: growing old as you inhale, no escape as you exhale. You can also do it without the breath. If you find it helpful, you can visualize yourself aging. If you're already in the later years of your life, see yourself aging further on. See yourself as you might be as you grow older. See your body, see your face. Let yourself really contemplate the process of growing old. Open up to the fact that this will happen to you. Maybe it's already here. And this doesn't mean that you are destined to grow old in your mind, that your sense of freshness and aliveness needs to grow old. This is really about your body, accepting that your body will age and grow old. As much as we can, opening to feel whatever resistance we might have to this, and being really kind and tender with this resistance, with whatever fear, whatever numbness or kind of turning away from this fact that might be there. Giving time for our remembrance to settle in us of old age. Growing old, no escape. And we come to the second remembrance. I am of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape having ill health. Ill health, no escape. Taking that in. At some point, everyone has to encounter illness. For a short time or for a longer time, we don't know. But contemplate yourself in a situation in which you're dealing with illness. Maybe where people need to help you or take care of you, or where you're unable to do the things you normally do. You've likely experienced something like this before in your life, whatever age you are. So, as much as you can, cultivate a heart of acceptance that this will likely come again. It could be a minor illness, it could be a more major illness, but that it's part of life. There's no escape from ill health. Ill health, no escape. And then the third practice, the third of the 5 remembrances. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. Death, no escape. If you wish, you could picture yourself on your deathbed in the last moments of your life, taking your final breaths. And really connecting with how you want those moments to be, those last moments. Would you like them to be peaceful, calm, free from fear? Feeling supported, feeling loved? Know that every time you bring up the awareness of your own death now in your daily life, when you're fully alive, you nourish the seed in you of being able to face your death with strength, with clarity, with tranquility. This is an important practice for a very important moment that we will each face. So really let yourself take in that one day you will die. One day you will take your very last breath. But it's possible to do that without resistance and without fear. Or at least with acceptance. There's no escape from death. Just holding yourself tenderly as you feel into this truth. Holding whatever is arising in you with kindness, with compassion. And we look at the fourth remembrance. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. All that is dear to me will change. No escape from being separated. Again, visualizing yourself having to be separated from what you love. People, places, things, how they will all change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. Really allowing that in, accepting that truth. Our very society is of the nature to change. We can't escape being separated from how our society used to be. Everything is in flux. We experience it especially now in this time of pandemic, but it was like that before too. It's just more obvious now. Taking a deep breath, taking good care with yourself. However you are in this moment. And the final remembrance. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. And then the key words, actions are the only thing I take with me. There's no escape from the consequences of my actions. Bringing awareness to the truth that when we pass away, we can't take anything with us. All we have are the consequences of our actions. There's no escape from these consequences. So letting yourself rest back, connecting with your breathing, connecting with your body as you dwell in this moment. There ain't no way to avoid dying, for I am of the nature to grow old. There ain't no way to avoid sickness, for I am of the nature to take ill. All those dear and precious to me will change and grow in their own time. My actions are my true possessions. They are the ground on which I stand. And dear friends, gently returning awareness back to our space together. Thank you for your practice. And we have a few minutes for reflections together, questions, answers. I'm happy to stay a little bit after the hour is up since we got a late start, but completely understand if people need to head out before then. I'm really grateful for your practice today, and we'll just invite Carolyn to, okay, thank you, Carolyn. Again in the chat you had before. I just encourage you all to support Sangha Live, support the teachers and the teachings. So here is a question from Hugh that I'll address first. And that is, I read and see information about awakening and enlightenment related to the infinite mind, to the finite mind and the infinite mind. And the same with awareness. Have you experienced infinite awareness? I wonder often if I ever will, and if I should settle for awakening just being my practice and desire for betterment and peace. Thank you for this question, Hugh. Well, I would say, to me, the question to someone else, have you experienced infinite awareness? Um, it could get you into a little bit of trouble, because if they say yes, then you might compare yourself and feel bad. If they say no, then you might compare yourself and say, well, I'm not doing so bad. Either way, it can reinforce an idea that um, that you're a separate self that can be compared to another separate self, which isn't really how it is. Um, so definitely, I can say expanded states of consciousness and awareness are are things that I've experienced, and that I know um, um, can happen in many different ways to people. It's not that you do this and then it comes. Sometimes no people with no practice whatsoever, they don't know the Dharma, they fall into a state of deep concentration and awareness, but not because they've been trying to do that. So it can come from many different directions. So it's also not something we want to put out in front of us and then run towards to try to get to. It's not something that we get uh, out there. It's already in here. All those states. I mean, awakening, right, is what you're pointing to, and the Buddha said it. That on the moment he awakened, his insight was, this is everyone's true nature, but they just don't know it. So it's in each of us already. We don't have to go looking for it. And here's what Thich Nhat Hanh would say. I heard him say many times, big enlightenment like the Buddha had is made of many small moments of enlightenment in our daily lives. So I think it's not about settling for awakening just being your practice uh, in terms of a desire for betterment and peace. That's not settling. That's a very beautiful focus of your practice, to see things clearly, to see things as they are, to accept yourself as you are. All those little moments when we awaken to, say, impermanence in our daily life, when we awaken to the goodness of someone else that we might have judged, or when we awaken to being able to see someone else's suffering and being able to forgive them. All those are really important. That's not settling to cultivate those small awakenings, because that's what leads and makes up big awakening. So I think the main thing is, anything we strive for, we're going to create suffering for ourselves. So it's not about striving for something external or something in the future to happen. It's about opening deeply to what is right here, right now. And that if you really are paying attention to the present moment and notice the arising, the passing away of every phenomena, that's awakening right here, right now. You don't need anything else. You don't need something else in the future. And practicing, to open yourself up to peace and to, purifying our minds, um, cultivating wholesome mind states, becoming, more and more loving with other people. That's that's it, And there's a beautiful verse in the Dhammapada. I can't remember it exactly, but it's something about, to avoid the unwholesome actions, to perform the wholesome actions, and to purify the mind. That's the teaching of all Buddhas. That's all we need to do, is cultivate wholesome states, avoid unwholesome states, and purify our minds. That's it. And awakening will be there in every moment. So thank you for that question, Hugh. And there was another Okay, here's from David. Very profound and appropriate meditation on acceptance. Wonderful that our actions are all we possess. How do we reconcile actions that have betrayed us? Thank you for this, because as I was offering the meditation, I also wanted to say, even though our actions are our only true possessions, it's not that we can't neutralize harmful actions that we've done in the past. It's not that we're, imprisoned by them. We can do actions in the present that can bring balance to the effect of what we've done in the past. So if you think of a graph, and you're going to see this in the other, I think in the opposite direction as I see it, but there's an X and a Y. So if your previous actions have taken you into, some kind of a ill being, like you say, it betrayed you. So this might be the curve. You can do actions in the present that don't betray you, that honor you, that, maintain your integrity, or that bring, well-being to others. And then that line is like this, right? So if you average the earlier action and the current action, you'll get something like that, right? So it's possible to focus on what you can do in this moment to bring about wholesome actions of thinking, of speech, and of body that will neutralize the harmful actions in the past. So Carolyn, you've asked a similar question about everyone makes mistakes, so I find it a bit hard to think that I can't escape the consequences of my actions. How can I deal with that? So I hope what I just said to Hugh or to David is helpful to you, Carolyn, that it's really not about blaming ourselves or that we have to be stuck in guilt, but it's really about just seeing that, it's the way we live that determines the quality of our life. And none of that's, a prison sentence. The things that we have done in the past, they influence us now, and we can do things now to bring about different results in our life. So it's really just that fifth Remembrances is really just about cause and effect. It's like what we do, it has a consequence. It's not to blame us, it's not to judge us, but it's to say, let's really live our lives with that awake awareness that everything we do matters. So we shouldn't think that, this casual, gossip, or this, killing something that, an insect or something that we don't want around, that it doesn't have an effect. And it's just to keep us very awake that, none of what we have materially is anything that we get to keep, but what we do with our lives, that's what stays with us, So I hope that is helpful. This is from David. Can you say more about our actions are our only possessions? We cannot avoid their consequences. We don't take material things with us, and I gather the consequences of our actions is about karma, but I don't know how to understand or hear this as anything but quite harsh and heavy. How to understand this in a loving and kind way. So I hope what I just said applies to this also, that it's really about staying awake in our lives. And, I heard a beautiful talk once about the mind as, that what we do with our minds while we're in this body is of utmost importance, because nothing else continues but the mind, not the self, but the mind is what carries on when the body passes away. That the what we've cultivated in our mind is what really sort of uh, continues, that there's a continuation of that. And so the speaker was just saying it's so important to, nourish wholesome and, begin to transform and understand unwholesome, because, that's the one thing that does move through different existences. So that's how I understand it. Not in a harsh, condemning way, but like, um, you know, stay awake, stay awake. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Clive has a question. This was from yesterday about the concept of merit. It wasn't about credits. That wasn't the word I used. It was merit, Clive. So it's a pretty Buddhist term, but it's this idea, again, related to karma, that when you perform wholesome deeds, that you wholesome merit, wholesome energy to yourself, which you can dedicate, which you can share, you can, um, you know, spread around to others. That's one thing we do often in the end of a ceremony or ritual, is we dedicate the merit to all beings. So anything we've done, chanting or ritual, we want to share that with all beings. So um, it's a sense of wholesome energy that comes to us from doing wholesome, beneficial deeds. There's a lot more to say about it. I think we probably need to close. And just thank you so much, everyone, for your patience in switching over today. And thank you, Carolyn, for your kind presence with us today. And hopefully tomorrow we will be back on Sangha Live. And I look forward to being with you the rest of the week. Take good care, everyone. Bye.